Bobby Fischer wins without calculating. Bobby Fischer was an American grandmaster. He was a world champion. He's considered one of the best chess players of all time. And today we're going to look at a simul game that he played in 1964 in Hartford, Connecticut against John Owen, who was a strong class player. And it's amazing to see how Bobby Fischer takes down the Caro-Kann without calculating in this game. So let's dive right into the game. We have e4, c6. This is a Caro-Kann. And now Fischer plays the Breyer variation with pawn to d3 already on move 2. Looks a little bit passive, but it's super solid. Knight d2, takes, pawn e5. The pawn structure is symmetric, both missing one d pawn, but Fischer is up one move in development because he's playing the white pieces. Knight f3, bishop g4. This move feels logical, but it's a mistake because after pawn to h3, you either have to give up the bishop pair or you have to lose the pawn on e5. So bishop h5, for example, there's g4, followed by knight takes e5. So black has to take the knight. Queen takes back, but now Fischer already has what's called the bishop pair advantage. Two bishops to a bishop. This is a nice advantage for a grandmaster to play with. So let's see if he can use this to his advantage. Knight f6, bishop d3, just playing solid, trying to get castled, finishing that kingside development first. Knight d7, castle, bishop c5, c3. The idea is a lot of times you want to play b4 and expand queenside. So black stops it with a5, pawn to a4. Now, let's take stake of the imbalances in this position because it does look very symmetric. Some people may even say this is looking boring so far, but it's far from boring. Fischer does still have this bishop pair advantage against the one bishop and a knight, and he has the queen sitting out on f3. This could make a difference. The queen has easy access to attack the black king side. So queen c7 played, queen e2, castle, and now Fischer makes what Stockfish would consider a dubious move. He plays pawn to g4, but this shows that he wants a tactical fight. So he's playing a simul. He doesn't want a game that's too dry or too equal, too easy to play for black. He throws up this pawn in front of his own king. Not recommended for beginners, but it's not a terrible move. The impressive thing, though, is when you're playing a simul, usually if you're the simul giver, you don't want a position that's too tactical because you know your opponent has a lot of time to calculate. Fischer does not have time to calculate. He's playing a bunch of people at once, but he's going for it. G4. H6 played, and this is a small inaccuracy. You want to be careful pushing pawns in front of your king when your opponent has a pawn storm coming at you. So that h6 pawn can become a target later on for this g pawn. Knight c4 played. It's hard to criticize Fischer in a simul, but h4 was a little bit faster. But look at this idea that he has. The d2 knight routes to c4 back to e3, and he wants to land on this beautiful outpost square. The knight wants to be on f5. And from there, it targets g7, h6, e7, d6. It's all over the place in black's camp. Pawn to g6 played, trying to keep the knight out. Queen f3, bishop f8. And you can tell here Mr. Owen is afraid of Fischer's attack, but can you really blame him? I mean, you're playing the world champion. What are you going to do? Fischer plays king h2, preparing to put his rook on the g file to attack the black king. Now, black has to figure out how to get some counterplay, and looking at the engine, it actually likes knight to c5, giving up this knight to queen takes f3, but allowing black to play knight takes d3. And a lot of modern GMs know this, that you need to play actively when you're being attacked. You can't just sit back and play completely passive. So Owen plays bishop to g7, rook g1, knight f8. Now, let's pause here for a second. If you want to try to find Fischer's move, there's a really strong move here. It's by far the best move. See if you can find it. The best move on the board, and it's a chess.com brilliant move, is knight to f5. Just giving up the knight to g takes f. And somehow, the best response for black is actually to ignore this knight. But who's going to ignore the knight? I mean, that's really hard to do. But instead of ignoring the knight, Owen captures it. G takes f5. He wants Fischer to prove the attack. Fischer takes back. Now Owen is up 2 points of material, a knight for one pawn. But The rook is open on the g file still. King h7 played, looks solid enough, putting another defense on this square, and if black has one free move, knight 8 to d7, this is actually an equal position already. So he just needs one move to get to safety. But Fischer's not going to allow it. Queen to g3, threatening the mate. And at this point, if you play, for example, bishop to h8, there's bishop takes h6. And if the king takes back, there's going to be checkmate issues on the h file. It's a pretty crazy position. He plays knight to e6 to just say, I'm going to give you a piece back in order to get my rook over to help out. Because the knight on f8 was cutting off the rook from getting to g8. Fischer takes the knight, f takes back. So for now, the queen guards this g7 bishop. Material is equal. Fischer sinks his queen into g6. And there's a cool tactic coming up. King h8 played. Fischer goes bishop takes h6. That one's easy. Grabs a free pawn. So Fischer is up one pawn now. Bishop takes back. And here, queen takes h6 check can be met by knight h7. So Fischer finds the more accurate move. Queen takes f6 check. The bishop blocks. Queen to h4 with check. Top move in the position, king g8. But now how does Fischer continue the attack? It almost looks like black is solidifying everything. This bishop on d3 is not helping out much. The rook can come up to the 7th rank to help defend. Fischer finds another brilliant sacrifice. How does he do it without calculating? It's all instincts and attacking intuition. He plays rook takes g7 with check. If queen takes g7, there's rook to g1, pinning the queen to the king. So king takes g7 played, rook g1, king f8. The king is on the run, but there's still a rook g7 check skewer picking up the queen. And now at this point, it's winning for white, but Fischer has to figure out how to convert. He starts with a check and then improves his bishop. The opponent plays rook f8, threatening this, and Fischer says, go ahead, take f2. I'm threatening queen takes e6. This is what happens. Rook takes f2, king moves, rook guards its friend on f2, queen takes e6 check. The king runs out to c5, but now there's this nice move, queen takes e5. I would need to calculate all of this. Fischer's just got it all figured out. He can do this in a simul without calculating. This is insane. So the king only has two moves, king to b6 or king takes c4, and they both fall for the same tactic. If you want, see if you can find the tactic. But he decides to play king to b6, and the tactic is queen to d4 check, and black resigned. And here's why. If Owen was to move his king, there's now queen takes f2, rook takes f2, king takes f2, and this is an easily winning position. So Owen resigns after queen to d4 check due to the queen takes f2 threat. What an exhilarating game that we just had from Bobby Fischer. His brilliant tactics, his sharp instincts really shine through in this game, and it showcases why he's one of the best players of all time. It's always a treat to watch such a genius in action. So until next time, keep enjoying beautiful chess games like this, and we're going to keep showing you both historic games and current game analysis on the ChessGoals YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.